What's going on, Flesh Forum? So I was playing Apotheon and Ashen recently, and they were fun enough, but I stopped playing them. And it was because I realized I get bored pretty easily. Like, really easily. I don't know if it's just because I'm generally more careful with what I spend my time on, but it's definitely this thing that's helped develop my taste and appreciation for media. Now this part sounds like my difficulty video, and it kind of relates. If a game is boring, why should I keep playing it? If it's not satisfying me, why should I keep playing it? It's kind of a concept that I took for granted before I really became critical of my time usage. When I was a kid, or even when I was a teenager, I would spend my time on all types of games, even games that I wouldn't even say that I was enjoying fully at the time. It was a force of both habit and investment. Now my tastes have evolved, and I think that's fascinating. I spent almost 1,000 hours playing Dota, and when I tried to play it again recently, it just didn't seem that fun. Not only that, but after I checked the time, I found it even less fun. And if a game is mediocre and takes a lot of time, is it good to me? Not anymore. Getting older comes with more disposable income, and with more disposable income comes more games and more choices. I feel like half the games I played and loved as a kid I might not have loved if I had more games to play. But what makes a game worth playing? Not worth putting down. What keeps a game good? First off, newness. Novelty. It's fun, especially if the game doesn't really do anything that other people do. It's dope. Newness adds to all of the experience and it's great until it wears off. Depending how good the game is, the newness experience can last from 1 hour to 12. Good example? Sekiro. I didn't play it for that long, but everything seemed fresh, new, and not like anything else I've played at least. Bad example? Arkham Knight. Shit's the same as City and Origins, man. Graphics help disguise the game, but only for a little bit. Graphics. When a game comes along and it looks like the newest tech demo shit or the art style is outrageous and fun, that can keep a game fresh. Best example I can think of is Darksiders 3. Everything about the game is pretty average or subpar except the art direction. The character designs and the style of the world was gorgeous and kept me playing. I wanted to unlock different looks for Fury and I wanted to explore the beautiful surroundings. That's the power of good art direction and graphics. I bet people played Crysis a lot because those were the games with the groundbreaking graphics of the time. Red Dead Redemption 2 definitely has a bunch of its load carried by its stellar realistic landscapes. You know when shit feels good to do? That's good gameplay. There's a huge difference between games with good gameplay and bad gameplay. You can have the prettiest house in the world, but if the foundations are bad, that shit's gonna come down sometime. Good gameplay is about good mechanics, game design, and fun. Unfortunately, some games get distracted by their other factors in game design and that can detract from the overall gameplay. A good example is God of War. Cleaving people feels so good, and throwing your axe never gets old in the playtime of the game. Your actions are weighty, so not only are you getting feedback on your moves, but you're also encouraged to really calculate them so you don't get owned by the AI. But this also doesn't take away from the experience of the story, or the sound design, or the art direction, and nothing really clashes. You're not forced to not be able to play the game just because the story doesn't want you to. A bad example of this is Red Dead Redemption 2. Simply put, the thing you do the most in terms of mechanics is shooting and looting, and neither are fun. All you do is aim down the sights and flick it up a bit and headshot. Ew. Also, Nakey Jakey has made a very long video about this particular topic, so I'd highly recommend watching. Now, good gameplay is great, but everything gets old, and this video ain't called what makes a game fun, it's called what keeps a game fun. Good gameplay isn't enough to sustain a game unless it's absolutely perfect, like Tetris or Bejeweled. Or Candy Crush? I don't know, I've never played Candy Crush, but like 40-year-old moms play it across the world, so they must be doing something right. Games with less perfect gameplay have to rely on other factors to hook your attention, and most of these things fall under progression. Now this one is a doozy. There's so many different types of progression in games, man. There's just like skill progression, which is getting better at the game. Then there's like RPG type progression, where you gain XP and you use that to get shit in the game. And then there's this sort of new, but really been around for 10 years type of shit called cosmetic or economic progression. There's one that I favor above all, and that's skill progression. Skill progression is great. Nothing feels better than just getting better at the game, whether it's single player or multiplayer, it just feels good. When you get back to a boss who whooped you, and now you can dodge all his attacks, you feel like a god. When you could only clear 40 lines in Tetris in 15 minutes, but now you can do it in 1, you feel amazing. With RPG progression, at some point, sometimes you just realize that it's just a numbers game, and that can get boring. I think that's my fault with all RPG games like now. If there's not a skill system or some sort of unique reward, it just makes me feel like, oh, okay, I do more damage now, that's cool, but it's not sustainable for like 20 hours. And the most sinister thing of all is cosmetic or economic progression. This one isn't even like something that keeps the game fun. This is more like something that tricks your brain into playing the game more. It's a scientifically backed strategy into giving you an addiction to loot boxes. Whether it's Fortnite, Overwatch, TF2 COD, or whatever flavor of the month game you're playing, probably has loot boxes if it's AAA. And I'm not gonna lie, loot boxes and cosmetic items have definitely made me stay on a game longer. It's definitely weird because even though these made me stay longer than actual progression, it makes you feel worse. After you try to quit this mindset and play the game just to have fun, you still feel the pull that the devs have put in there. It's like, oh hey, there's a loot box. You sure you don't want to open it up? You sure you don't want to spend money and buy these Dota coins or Fortnite coins or E-Bucks or whatever fake currency that they're making because it's illegal in countries to call it actual money, and also it just makes it easier to trick people into gambling, especially children? Yeah. I think that games are easily fun for the first hour or couple hours, but after that, it's evident which games are more replayable than others. After a couple hours in Apotheon or Ashen, I realized that the progression was just going to be simple RPG style. Nothing was really changing, just the stats. Like, if you're not going to give me something new and cool to play with, if the only thing that changes is stats, and enemies get stat boosts as time goes on, then what's the point? I guess in Ashen you can argue that the different enemy types in the story are the main motivators to keep playing, but I wasn't feeling them. And speaking of stories are super important. That's another thing I would say motivates me to finish a game. A good story in a single player game is like, whoo! Is that what a chef's kiss sounds like? I'm trying to, mwah. It sounds like I'm just kissing you, so I'll stop. A sufficiently good story can override a lot of bad elements in the game and keep you playing for hours to come. Because let's face it, when you start to get invested, you just have to keep playing. Good example? God of War. I had to know how the story ended. It kept me glued to the screen. Another good example, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. When you make your family and you link yourself to your partner in this relationship, you just feel like you have to know what's going on. Bad example? I don't know, man. Recent example is NBA 2K19 My GM. I feel like nobody who watches this channel played this, but basically you're the organizer of like an NBA team and you gotta do things, and that's the game mode. But if you select this in NBA 2K19, you gotta go through hours of cutscenes in the beginning before you even get to play, and you're choosing these weird dialogue options. I'm not here for one-on-one games with a 60-year-old cowboy, and of course he can dunk. Another factor is length. On the single player topic, pacing and length are actually huge factors because of my limited time. It's a thing that changed me from the guy who does all the side quests in a game to the guy who's just trying to do the main quest and beat the game, for better or worse. An example would be Witcher 3. I'm sure that game is great and it was really fun when I was playing it, but since my first 20 hours was just stuck in the first area doing side quests, which is my fault, I didn't want to play anymore because the game seemed to get dull. A better example is Spider-Man for the PS4. It's awesome and it's amazing. The story is a perfect representation of Spider-Man, the gameplay is fun, and overall it's just great. However, I definitely felt the gameplay getting a bit stale the more I played it. And sometimes for a single player game, instead of trying to build more progression and things that make you stay in the game, sometimes the easier and more effective strat is ending the game. And when Spider-Man ends, it ends with a bang. It doesn't overstay its welcome. That's a thing that single player story games have over multiplayer games. They control when you stop playing and control your length of experience. Sure, you can do the post-game stuff, but if they did their job right, you now have a fond memory of the single player stuff. You just can't do that for multiplayer games. Often enough, if you play a multiplayer game and it doesn't hold you, one of the memories you hold are why you don't play it anymore. The single player games I love pretty much don't have negatives in regards to why I don't play them anymore, because I finished them. And then that was it, that was the end. But I remember that Dota 2 got a bit toxic. I remember Overwatch wasn't balanced the way I would like to play, and I remember that Left 4 Dead was just boring. And the last factor, and probably the most important, is friends. For a lot of people, at the end of the day, it isn't about what killer features the game has, it isn't about the proprietary AI that procedurally generates levels, it's not the fun gameplay or the finely tuned balance system, it's about who's playing. Because if all my friends are playing Fortnite, you bet your ass I'll at least have to try it out. And if all your friends are playing Apex, you could enjoy your time and be antisocial, or try to enjoy the company of your friends. After all, you and your friends having fun can be the X factor that will make the game fun and keep you playing. And that's almost the worst part for the developers because that's the one thing that they can't control. I think I'm just getting more and more prone to dropping games quicker and quicker if they don't have any of these factors, or are subpar, like Apotheon and Ashen. Let me know what you think about this topic. If you agree, or disagree, or whatever, let me know. Thanks for watching. Stay cool, and as always, stay fleshy.